Hare Krishna, welcome all of you for today's session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from the book Sri Ishopanishad, the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna by His Divine Grace Vishwaguru Abhay Charana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Mantra 12. Andham tamah pravishanti ye asambhutim upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yau sambhutyam rataha. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal Brahman. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Sanskrit word asambhuti refers to those who have no independent existence. Sambhuti is the supreme absolute personality of Godhead, who is absolutely independent of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 2, the absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna states, Name vidussuragana prabhavan maharshayah aham madirhi devanam maharshinam cha sarvashah. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. Thus, Krishna is the origin of the powers delegated to demigods, great sages, and mystics. Although they are endowed with great powers, these powers are limited, and thus it is very difficult for them to know how Krishna himself appears by his own internal potency in the form of a man. Many philosophers and great rishis or mystics try to distinguish the absolute from the relative by their tiny brain power. This can only help them reach the negative conception of the absolute without realizing any positive trace of the absolute. Definition of the absolute by negation is not complete. Such negation, such negative definitions lead one to create a concept of one's own. Thus, one imagines that the absolute must be formless and without qualities. Such negative qualities are simply the reversals of relative material qualities and are therefore also relative. By conceiving of the absolute in this way, one can at the most reach the impersonal effulgence of God, known as Brahman, but one cannot make further progress to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Such mental speculators do not know that the absolute personality of Godhead is Krishna, that the impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body, or that the Paramatma, the Supersoul, is his all pervading plenary representation. Nor do they know that Krishna has his eternal form with its transcendental qualities of eternal bliss and knowledge. The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly consider him to be a powerful demigod, and they consider the Brahman effulgence to be the absolute truth. But the devotees of Krishna, by dint of their surrendering unto him and their unalloyed devotion, can know that he is the absolute person and that everything emanates from him. Such devotees continuously render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verses 20 and 23, it is said that only unintelligent, bewildered persons driven by a strong desire for sense gratification worship the demigods for the temporary relief of temporary problems. Since the living being is materially entangled, he has to be relieved from material bondage entirely to attain permanent relief on the spiritual plane, where eternal bliss, life, and knowledge exist. Sri Ishopanishad therefore instructs that we should not seek temporary relief of our difficulties by worshipping the dependent demigods who can bestow only temporary benefit. Rather, we must worship the absolute personality of Godhead Krishna, who is all attractive and who can bestow upon us complete freedom from material bondage by taking us back home, back to Godhead. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 23, that the worshippers of the demigods can go to the planets of the demigods. The moon worshippers can go to the moon, the sun worshippers to the sun, etc. Modern scientists are now venturing to the moon with the help of rockets, but this is not really a new attempt. With their advanced consciousness, human beings are naturally inclined to travel in outer space and to reach other planets, either by spaceships, mystic powers, or demigod worship. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that one can reach other planets by any of these three ways, but the most common way is by worshipping the demigod presiding over a particular planet. In this way, one can reach the moon planet, the sun planet, and even Brahmaloka, the topmost planet in the universe. However, all planets in the material universe are temporary residences. The only permanent planets are the Vaikuntha Lokas. These are found in the spiritual sky, where the personality of Godhead Himself predominates. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 16, A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Punarjanmana Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. We will continue to read the purport. Yesterday we had discussed the first two lines of this mantra, where we had discussed Asambhutim refers to the Devatas. Asambhutim means those who don't have independent existence. So the Devatas are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead for their powers, for their functionalities within this material world. And we also discussed that even the benedictions that are given by the Devatas to their worshippers are also sanctioned by the Supreme Lord. Only when the Supreme Lord sanctions, the Devatas can bless their worshippers. In fact, in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, if somebody wants to attain material benefits, and one who's very eager to attain material benefits by worshipping a particular Devata, Krishna says, I am seated in the heart of such worshippers, and I strengthen the faith of that worshipper towards that particular Devata. And when the Devata is pleased, it is me only who sanctions those benedictions through the agencies of the Devatas. Now, from this, we understand the Devatas are not independent at all. And in fact, the worshippers of the Devatas, in their hearts, faith about a particular Devata is also created by the Supreme Lord, who is seated in their hearts as Paramatma. So the Devatas are called Asambhutim. That means they are non-independent entities. This is very important understanding. We had discussed this yesterday. So Ishopanishad says, those who worship the non-independent Devatas, thinking that they are the Supreme, they are the independent Supreme Lord, such people enter into the darkest region of ignorance. In fact, Srila Prabhupada quotes the Padma Purana verse and says, one who equates anybody to the Supreme Lord Vishnu, even such great Devatas as Brahma or Rudra, such people are actually called Pashandi. Pashandi means the highest form of atheism. Yesterday we were discussing about this example, right? If you say there are more than one prime ministers in a country, that means there is no value for the prime minister. In essence, you are saying there is no one called prime minister. If you say everybody is same as prime minister, then you're actually essentially saying that there is no one called prime minister, isn't it? There are many ministers who are reporting to the prime minister, but the prime minister can be only one. In the same way, there are many devatas who are called as demigods in English language, and these uh, personalities, they are not independent. So there are many devatas or demigods, but the supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, is one. If you equate the devatas with Bhagavan and say everybody is Bhagavan, in essence, you're actually saying there is no one called Bhagavan. And this is nothing but atheism. That is why the Padma Purana says one who equates even great devatas like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva to the Supreme Lord Vishnu or Krishna, such people are the atheists of the highest order. So, this is very important. We have to understand this. Now, the second part of this mantra says, Tato bhuya ive iva te tamaha yau sambhutyam rataha. Still more, so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. So, the first part of the mantra says, those who are engaged in the worship of the devatas enter into the darkest region of ignorance. And still more, the second part says, and still more do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. That means those who understand that the absolute truth is impersonal, not a person. Nirakaravadis, they are called. Nirakaravadis means those who understand that, or those who think that God has no personality. So, such people are worser than the demigod worshippers. Their destination is much more darker. They're going to enter into darker regions of ignorance than the worshippers of the devatas. See, actually, this mantra is addressing two very fundamental mistakes that even many times even great scholars do uh, about understanding the supreme absolute truth. One mistake is to think that all devatas are one and the same, that we already discussed. And the second mistake is considering that the absolute truth is not a person. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, condemning such a conception, avyaktim vyak, avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abuddhayaha. Abuddhayaha means those who have no buddhi, those who have no intelligence. What do they think? They think that originally the Supreme Lord is avyaktam. Avyaktam means he is impersonal. He is not a vyakti. He is not a person. But now he has accepted a personhood. Vyaktim apannam means he has become a person. Originally, he is not a person, but he became a person now and he has come to this material world to perform some activities. Such people are described by Lord Krishna as abuddhayaha, those who have no knowledge at all. It is not a fact that originally the Lord is not a person. Only when he comes to this material world, he accepts a personality and he comes. That's not at all the right understanding. So, with respect to the Devata worshippers, Krishna used the word Alpamedhasaha that we discussed yesterday, one who is less intelligent. But with respect to those who consider the absolute to be impersonal, Krishna is using a much stronger word by saying they are abuddhayaha. They are they have no intelligence whatsoever. At least the demigod worshippers are alpamedhasaha. They are less intelligent. They understand that there are controllers beyond me and they are powerful enough to satisfy my desires. So therefore, let me take to the worship of the devatas, right? So they at least understand that there are controllers, there are personalities managing the universal affairs of this material world. So, in that way, they have accepted the personality of the Devatas, at least. Of course, they make a mistake when they equate the personality of the Devatas with personality of Godhead. But as far as the Nirakaravadis are concerned, the impersonalists are concerned, they say neither the Devatas nor the Supreme Lord is a person. They say that they accept personhood temporarily for certain purposes. In fact, this is their understanding about the Supreme Lord when he appeared 5,000 years ago on this planet. In fact, there are great scholars who write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita and they mislead the innocent public by commenting wrongly. For example, one of the great scholars, Sanskrit scholars, who was also the president of our country, he has written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita called Gita Rahasya. And in the place where Krishna says, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, he says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. So this great scholar comments saying that when Krishna says surrender unto me, we should not think that we should surrender to the person called Krishna, but inside Krishna there is an unborn Jyoti, there is an unborn light. To that light we have to surrender. Now this is impersonal uh, calamity. This is actually a calamity because such great leaders, great scholars, they think that because they know Sanskrit language and they have got some scholarly abilities, they are capable of explaining Bhagavad Gita. So they write commentaries, and in this way they play havoc in the spiritual lives of millions of people who trust them and read their commentary and accept their commentary to be true. This is wrong because actually for the Supreme Lord there is no difference between body and soul. The difference between body and soul exists only for us in the material world. Whereas for Krishna there is no such difference. The Upanishad says, Deha dehi vibhedeham neshware vidyate kvachit. Kvachit means at any given point of time, for the Supreme Lord, there is no difference. Vibheda means difference between Deha and Dehi. That means body and the soul. There is no difference for Krishna. It's not that Krishna is some light and now he has accepted a body and he came to the material world and spoke the Bhagavad Gita. This is not the right understanding. Krishna descended as he is. In fact, if you study the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in the very beginning, Krishna says, Sambhavami Atma Mayaya. Sambhavami means I come to this material world by my own will. By my own will, I come. Right? He is not forced by some external agency. He comes as he is. So, this understanding that God is impersonal has created a lot of problems. One of the most important problems that it has created is if God is not a person, they say you can interpret God's words in whatever way you want. For example, wherever Krishna says, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses the word aham many times. Right? Krishna says, aham sarvasya prabhavaha. For example, in the 10th chapter, 8th shloka, he says, I am the source of everything that exists. Now, the impersonalists, they interpret it saying, aham means it is the principal ego. It is not the person called Krishna. You see, what a wrong understanding. That means there is no understanding of bhakti possible with this impersonal explanation. Right? And these impersonalists, is a general term for those who think that God is not a person. Among the impersonalists, there is a special subcategory called as Mayavadis. So who are Mayavadis? Mayavadi is essentially an impersonalist who thinks that The personality of Krishna is material, right? And he says the name of Krishna is material. The form of Krishna is material. The pastimes of Krishna are material. Everything connected with Krishna's personality is material. That is their contention. They are known as Mayavadis. So all impersonalists are not Mayavadis, but all Mayavadis are essentially impersonalists, and they try to negate the personality of the Lord by saying that these attributes of the Lord are simply material imaginations. They're all caused by Maya. That is what they say. That means they say Krishna's name is material. So there is no need to chant Krishna's name. You can as well choose any name of any devata and chant, you will get the same benefit. This is their understanding. This is what they preach. But this is directly against the instructions of the Vedas, Upanishads, and the Puranas. That means we should be very careful not to hear from these Mayavadis. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly forbidden the devotees by saying, Mayavada Bhashya Sunile Hoy Sarvanash. Those who hear to the Mayavada Bhashya, Bhashya means explanation. When you hear to the Mayavada explanations of these great scholars, it is actually a misinterpretation of the Vedic scriptures. They deny the existence of the Supreme Lord in a sense. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warns, if you hear to such a Mayavada explanation, your spiritual life is doomed. Very strong statement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Another place in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu says, Mayavadi say Krishna aparadhi. Mayavadi is the greatest offender at the lotus feet of Krishna because he uses the words of Krishna to prove that there is no Krishna. You see? The Mayavadis, they write commentaries on the words of Krishna to show that there is no one called Krishna. What kind of a mentality, what kind of a consciousness these people have? That means they are commenting on the words of Krishna and proving that there is no one called Krishna. This is the greatest offense at the lotus feet of Krishna. So such Mayavadis, they are actually very, very envious of Krishna. Prabhupada says they write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, on the words of Krishna, to kill Krishna. One such great Mayavadi scholar who existed about 500 years ago during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. This Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was a Mayavadi, yet he was the head priest in the temple of Lord Jagannath in Puri. Right? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a young sannyasi, and he was singing and chanting and dancing Hare Krishna Kirtan. This Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thought, such a young man has accepted sannyas. Sorry. Such a young man has accepted sannyas. It is the duty of every sannyasi to study the Vedanta. But instead of that, this young sannyasi is sentimentally singing and dancing. This is not correct, he thought. And he said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you sit down, I will teach you Vedanta. And what did he teach actually? He taught the Mayavada explanation of Vedanta. So, for 7 days continuously, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke the Mayavada explanation of Vedanta, and Mahaprabhu went on hearing without giving any response. At the end of the 7 days, this Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya got a doubt. He thought, so much I spoke. This Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has not even nodded his head, not even said, ha, yes, nothing he has said. Has he really understood what I spoke? So he asked, you didn't respond anything to what I said. Have you really understood what I was trying to say all these 7 days? And to that Mahaprabhu smiled and said, actually the original verses of the Vedanta are as clear as the sun, but your explanations are like the clouds which are actually covering the effulgence of the sun. You have given a wrong explanation. Then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was still then thinking that this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sentimental devotee who has accepted sannyasa at a very young age without proper understanding, when he heard this statement from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he asked, he challenged, now you tell me then what is the right explanation of the Vedanta Sutras? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began speaking. He gave the direct explanation. See, there are two types of explanations of any Vedic statement: Mukhya Vritti explanation and Gauna Vritti explanation. Mukhya Vritti means direct explanation, Gauna Vritti means indirect explanation. For example, if there is a statement, he is a young man, what is the direct explanation? He is a young man. We take the statement as it is. There is no need to interpret that statement, isn't it? If I say he is a young man, that means he's full of energy. Probably he is in his youthhood. He's a young man, full of energy. That's all. Whereas if you give a Gaunavritti explanation, what do you say? You may say, he appears to be a young man. Maybe some people have done a makeup on him that makes him look young man, but actually he may not be a young man. That means trying to give some interpretation to the statement. Actually, the Vedic knowledge need not be interpreted. Every statement of the Vedas is authoritative. It has to be accepted as it is. It need not be subjected to the interpretation of so-called intelligent people of this world. No need to interpret. That's why we say when somebody says some important thing and we challenge it, generally in our tradition we say, oh, what you are saying is Vedavakya. Should we accept it as it is without questioning? We use this, isn't it? Some of us might be familiar with this. Oh, what you are saying is Vedavakya, is it? That means what is the meaning of that? Vedavakya, the instruction of the Vedas, the statements of the Vedas have to be accepted as it is. That is the meaning. So that is Mukhya Vritti explanation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Mukhya Vritti explanation and he said, actually, all the Vedic statements are actually pointing towards Krishna, who is Shadaishwarya Purnam, who is full of six opulences, and he is a lovable personality. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya heard this explanation, he was thoroughly convinced because Mahaprabhu quoted the Vedic statements to substantiate his explanation. So, by the end of that conversation, by the end of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave up his Mayavada contamination. He surrendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also displayed his Shadbhuja Gauranga form, six-armed form he displayed, showing his divinity, saying that he is not different from Krishna and Lord Ramachandra. He has come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this Kali Yuga for distributing the holy name. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was thoroughly convinced. He gave up his Mayavada idea and he became a devotee of the Lord. So hardcore Mayavadis, if they have to be transformed, it is possible only by the Supreme Lord or his pure devotee. It is not possible otherwise. Generally, the Mayavadis simply keep arguing and they become envious when we talk about the personality of Godhead. They say ultimately it is all Maya. So they are worshipping the form of God in the temple, but they say it is a Maya form. Because in the beginning you need some form to concentrate your mind, they say. So you can assume some form and worship. But once you become enlightened, once you understand that you are actually same as God, then you need not worship any form of God in the temple. This is their theory. So they say a stage will come when you will realize that you are God yourself. So this is actually the greatest offense. So therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned that one should not hear from the Mayavadi scholars. And unfortunately, in our country, we have a lot of Mayavadi scholars, and they also will have temples. They will also be worshipping the deity. They will also be chanting the holy names of the Lord. They will also be studying Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also they will be studying, and they'll be giving commentaries about it. But in the core, they have no faith in Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's activities. They say it is all a manifestation of Maya. So therefore, hearing to such a Mayavadi explanation will not at all be any value for a devotee who wants to advance in loving devotional service to Krishna. So this Ishopanishad mantra 12 is saying those who are worshippers of the devatas, no doubt they enter into the darkest region of ignorance because they think that the devatas are independent entities. But still, worser is the condition of those who think that God has no form. Those who worship the impersonal absolute, they are more degraded than the worshippers of the devatas. This is the statement of the Ishopanishad as it is explained by Srila Prabhupada. We will continue to read in the next session and discuss the remaining part of the purport. Shri Ishopanishad ki jai, Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. In a short while, we will be reciting the verses from the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Request you to stay online.